Balboa Park in San Diego is a vibrant cultural oasis nestled in the heart of the city. Spanning 1,200 acres, it is one of the oldest urban parks in the United States. Originally developed for the 1915 Panama, California Exposition, the park showcases a breathtaking collection of Spanish colonial revival buildings, promenades, arcades, and fountains that give it a distinctly European charm. Its tree-lined pathways and grand plazas are surrounded by museums, performing arts venues, and beautifully manicured gardens. The park blends rich history, stunning architecture, diverse gardens, and world-class attractions into a single, walkable destination. This video features a curated collection of highlights from our favorite Balboa Park-themed videos, all of which are available to view on our YouTube channel. Step inside the San Diego Air and Space Museum and experience their mission to preserve, inspire, educate, and celebrate. The museum showcases the evolution of aviation and space exploration through historic aircraft, spacecraft, and interactive exhibits. Meet Audrey Uchino and Bob Hill for a tour of the beautiful Japanese Friendship Gardens. The mission of the garden is to develop a traditional Japanese garden as a center to educate, engage, and inspire people of diverse backgrounds about Japanese culture and community legacy. The garden resides on 12 acres and fosters a relationship between humans and nature, providing a respite attuned to Japanese simplicity, serenity, and aestheticism. Learn about the history of Balboa Park and walk among the fountains, open spaces, and scenic walking trails. Admire the Spanish Renaissance architecture and learn about the popular attractions on a tour given by Ron Oliver. Take a tour with Emily Hanna and explore the Mingei International Museum. Here you will find informative displays dedicated to celebrating folk art, craft, and everyday design from around the world. The philosophy of the museum follows the Japanese concept of Mingei, or art of the people, which emphasizes handmade utility objects that evoke beauty, spirit, and connection across diverse cultures. Wander through the over 27,000 square feet of trains, trestles, and tracks at the San Diego Model Railroad Museum. Meet Chief Docent John Phillips and marvel at the extensive detail work that goes into the 5 main model layouts. The mission of the museum is to research, collect, preserve, and present the heritage of American railroading using educational programs, displays, toy trains, and scale models of California railroads. Join James Haddon on a tour of the Museum of Us. This cultural anthropology museum celebrates the human experience through multicultural perspectives to spark dialogue, self-reflection, and human connections. Interactive exhibits illustrate themes that connect humans across time and culture. And see the one-of-a-kind exhibition about cannibals, myth and reality. Tour the Natural History Museum with Abigail, the senior manager of exhibits. The museum is one of the oldest scientific institutions in Southern California. Exhibits include interactive displays, fossil collections, dinosaur skeletons, gems and minerals, and exhibits on local ecosystems and climate change. The museum emphasizes environmental science, paleontology, geology, and regional flora and fauna.
The whole idea was to get in and get out, take pictures, not get caught, not get shot down, so it could fly really fast and really high, like 90,000 feet at about 2,200 miles an hour. So when it's reconnaissance mode, what it could do is it could take 100,000 square miles of aerial photography in 1 hour. That's like all of Oregon. This was an attempt at the Navy to build a fighter plane that would be able to land on the water, as you see, the skis. They built 5 of them, and they actually didn't fly operationally, but it's the only seaplane to have flown supersonically, to be able to go faster than the speed of sound. He made 2,000 flights, and his whole flying time was 5 hours. He flew downhill about 9 or 10 seconds of flight. All of that, he built up a lot of this information, like I say, that helped inspire the Wright brothers. Unfortunately, he was killed in 1896. What happened was the Wright brothers took some of this data, which they later thought wasn't quite right, but what they did, it inspired them to build these 2 gliders. And the whole thing about the Wright brothers is that they determined, they knew right away that the thing to do was to be able to control the airplanes. People were doing all kinds of flying before that, all kinds of interesting things, but they were crashing, they weren't doing this, they weren't doing that. The Wright brothers said, we got to do this. We got to make sure the airplane goes like this, and like this. We got to make it work. We control that, and we can fly. And so those 2 gliders helped the Wright brothers get to their first flight, helped the Wright brothers control aircraft. So that's their importance. This is the Vin Fizz. This is the first person to fly across the United States. He did it in 49 days in 1911. Yeah, there was, William Randolph Hearst, a newspaper reporter guy. So he offered $50,000 to the person that could fly across the U.S. in 30 days. Well, he didn't quite make 30 days. 30 days later, he was only in Kansas City or somewhere. Fact is, he did it. He had a train, and it had all parts for the airplane in it. And so he rode this train across country, and he crashed quite a few times on the way back. He actually messed up his arm, and the engine blew up. By the time he got to Pasadena, supposedly the only original things on the airplane were a part of the tail, part of the engine, and a bottle of Vin Fizz.
The inscription was written out by the mayor of Yokohama, and then they found someone to engrave it onto the plaque and make a monument of it. And the sister city has a garden many times bigger than ours, but it has phonetically the same name. So ours is called Sankei-en, theirs is also called Sankei-en. In Japanese, though, depending on the characters you use, it will sound exactly the same, but it will be written differently. So Sankei-en means, san means 3, and then K is for views, and then N is garden. So ours is basically means 3 views garden. And so what we're hoping that you will find when you enter our garden are the 3 views that kind of capture the essence of Japan. So that would be the mountains, and then the water, because we're an island nation, and then the land in between, kind of the pastoral space in between. And so hopefully we can point it out to you, and it's kind of captured in a miniature form throughout the garden here. So everything's just been kind of scaled down so that it doesn't overwhelm you, because like a pine tree, if you just let it grow to its natural height, it could be that tall. But something that tall here would just kind of dwarf us. So everything's been trimmed down to just, have a nice balance and the proportions maintained. This is kind of a classic pine that you would find in many Japanese gardens. It's not the same variety as that. This is a black pine. So that would represent kind of the mountainous area. And then the mondo grass here would kind of represent the space in between the pastoral. And then we might not have a body of water surrounding us, but we would have something that evokes the sense of water. So we have a feature here called the shishiodoshi. And back in the day, farmers would fashion something like this to scare the deer away. So it's kind of like our version of a scarecrow. It fills up periodically with water, and then the weight of it just forces it to clunk. And then you've got a stone placed conveniently at the bottom, so it makes that clanging sound.
My name is Ron Oliver. I am a volunteer for the Forever Balboa Park Association. It's an organization that was put together. It's been around for a long time with different names, and it's created to promote and improve Balboa Park. Balboa Park's the second oldest urban cultural park in the United States, second only to New York Central in age. New York Central is 3 years older than Balboa Park. It was set aside in 1868. The total acreage of the park when it was set aside was 1,400 acres. A fun story about that is the reason we set aside the park for the citizens of the future is when the United States took over California from the Mexican government, one of the requirements in the Pueblo agreements was to set aside a free and open public parkland in each of the pueblos. And so they finally decided to do that in San Diego in 1868. That was in the 1830s. In 1868, they were looking around. The population of San Diego was about 2,300 people. Downtown San Diego was about 700 acres, and most of the people involved on the council and involved in the civic activities of San Diego at the time were people in real estate. So they figured, well, we better set aside this parkland because we're trying to sell land and we don't want to sell some property that could be taken over and condemned for a park.
So this exhibition on piñatas is one that we took from a gallery in Los Angeles called Craft in America. But that gallery is quite a lot smaller than Mingei International, so we were able to think about how we wanted to expand the show, and we made some pretty nice commissions, including the 17-foot lowrider piñata car, which is fairly dazzling. This show suits our mission so perfectly because we are art of the people. That's what Mingei means. And so we show things that are handmade, used in everyday life, things that people recognize and are familiar with. So the piñata is something that is in everyone's life, but these artists have taken it to an entirely new level. There are piñata paintings, the car, there's a swarm of tiny monarch butterflies. They've each just taken it. There's a President Trump piñata. But what we've seen after we opened this show is that just that wonderful sign of recognition when people walk in the door and they see that something in their lives, a craft in their lives, is worthy of celebration. So the interesting thing about these piñatas is the history of them. We think of them in Mexico and really embedded in Mexican tradition. But evidently it started way back in China with the practice of cracking a clay ox that was full of seeds. So it was connected to springtime and planting and breaking something open for seeds to come out. And then it traveled this long route from China through trade to Italy, then from Italy to Spain. It got caught up in the Catholic Church. The seven-pointed star that you see tied up with the seven deadly sins and smashing the seven deadly sins.
Welcome to the San Diego Model Railroad Museum. I'm John Phillips. I'm one of the exhibit operators that works here in the museum. This used to be called the Electric Building, okay? And in 1978, this building, along with some other buildings at the same night, burned down in the park. This used to be the location up to 1978 of the Air and Space Museum, okay? So when this building burned down, the Air and Space Museum lost everything in it. They weren't able to retrieve anything. So the city made a decision to rebuild the buildings that burned down. The Air and Space folks decided to go down to the south end of the park, and that they're still down there today. And there were two clubs, the San Diego Model Railroad Association and the La Mesa Model Railroad Association, that approached the city and said, can we have the space so we can start a model railroad museum? And the city said yes. So that's how it all started. So the building was rebuilt, and it was probably done in 1981. The clubs came in and started building, and we opened our doors to the public in 1982. All the layouts that you see here in the museum belong to the individual clubs. So the clubs are responsible to build, operate, and maintain their own layouts.
The mission of the Museum of Us is to inspire human connections by exploring the human experience. The main museum is housed in the California Building with its landmark tower. The California Quadrangle, California Building, and California Tower are historic structures located in Balboa Park in San Diego, California. They were built for the 1915 to 1916 Panama, California Exposition and served as the grand entry to the expo.
Hello there, everyone. Welcome to the Museum of Us in beautiful Balboa Park on the homeland of the Kumeyaay Nation. And we always like to kind of start off that introduction about the museum to remind everybody that this is traditional Kumeyaay land, and to remind everyone when they visit the museum in the Balboa Park that we weren't the first people here. And the Kumeyaay community still live in the San Diego area and are really a vibrant community. So here we are in front of the Museum of Us building, which is also historically called the California Building and Tower. And it was built in 1915 for the Panama, California Exposition. And the question that I always get, or very frequently get, is is this a church, or was it a church? Because it certainly looks like one, but it was never a church. It was always meant to be a display area, an exhibit space, and a museum. And for many years, this was known as the San Diego Museum of Man. We've been the Museum of Us since August of 2020, and it was really a name that we adopted to really be a public commitment to inclusivity and to the anti-racism and decolonial work that the museum's been doing for well over 10 years. And to kind of start that discussion off, I'd like to point everybody to the facade of the museum, which is very beautiful and people really love to see. And when you think of a church facade like this, there are usually saints and religious figures on it. This building actually has the busts and statues of 9 European colonizers on it. And so we really like to point that out because it's really, as a decolonial museum, we have a Google Arts and Culture exhibit that you can access on their app. And it's an exhibit about these 9 individuals from the point of view of Native Americans, who have a very different view of these 9 individuals than people who have studied them from a European perspective. And so we like to kind of show those different kinds of perspectives at the museum. It's something that we're really committed to kind of showing different perspectives from all kinds of different cultures, and especially those perspectives that we don't hear so often.
The San Diego Natural History Museum is a vibrant institution that has been educating and inspiring visitors since its founding in 1874. Located in Balboa Park, it is one of the oldest scientific institutions in Southern California. The museum specializes in the natural history of Southern California and Baja California. In this video, we will travel through a 75 million year timeline from the age of dinosaurs to the ice ages. Learn about biodiversity hotspots in Southern California. See a Rare Birds of America double elephant folio by John James Audubon, published in 1858. Enjoy unusual preserved material from the research collection, and see much, much more.
Hi, my name's Abby Carr-Kenny. I'm the Senior Manager of Exhibits here at the San Diego Natural History Museum. And today we're going to take a look at some of our favorite exhibits. We have a really talented exhibits team, and each person plays a different role. I do mostly the early planning, the research, working with the curators to select specimens, the boring stuff like the budget. And then we have some amazing designers and artists who help bring these ideas to life. The first thing you should know about the San Diego Natural History Museum is that we are a regionally focused museum. So unlike some natural history museums that might have exhibits on different parts of the world, different cultures, we are solely focused on Southern California and the Baja California Peninsula. Even with the border there, it's one ecoregion, right? So sometimes people come here and they're like, where are all the dinosaurs? Why don't you have more dinosaurs here? And you'll see in Fossil Mysteries, we have a few. We've got a few dinosaurs. But one of the interesting things about our region is that we don't have a lot of dinosaurs because California was underwater at the time of dinosaurs, right? So it had to have really specific conditions in order for a fossil to be found here, right? A dinosaur had to die and then basically be washed all the way out to sea and then get buried in the sediment. So that's part of the story that we tell here in Fossil Mysteries, is how we don't have a lot of them, but the ones we have are really special because it took some very specific circumstances to get here.